Hello and welcome back to World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Diana Skaya. Now, on October 7, 2024, Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal and Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico met near the Ukrainian border city of Uzhhorod to discuss key areas of cooperation, particularly in energy security and infrastructure development. Now, the meeting took place amid growing political tensions, particularly following Fico's recent statements that he made about blocking Ukraine's path to NATO membership. Now, his position has sparked concerns across Europe as Slovakia reconsiders its stance on military aid to Ukraine and its relationship with Russia. Now, to get deeper in these details, I'm joined by Tomáš Strážay, analyst at the Slovak Foreign Policy Association. Sir, thank you so much for being with us here this evening on TVP World Talks.
Thank you for the invitation. Good evening.
Now, sir, how crucial is Ukraine's energy infrastructure for Slovakia before we even get into all the details of that?
Well, Slovakia still depends to the countries that are very much depending on Russia's gas and oil. And for this reason, the transport of both commodities through Ukrainian territory seems to be crucial for the current government. Of course, Slovakia has experienced certain process of diversification of energy suppliers since February 22, but still I would say that when it comes to gas, at least 50% of gas imports are coming from Russia, and those are delivered through Ukraine. So Ukraine plays a role of a very important transit country for Slovakia for both gas and oil, and that's why actually the transit and the transport of those commodities has been one of the top points in the agenda of the joint meeting of the Slovak and Ukrainian governments.
Now, I mean, just a few hours ago, of course, the Ukraine made a statement on that, on what you just said. But now tell me, what are the strategic implications if Ukraine decides to stop the gas and oil transit to Western Europe?
Well, I would say that the Western partners, the Western countries, including Slovakia and its main import company when it comes to gas, are more or less ready for this step. However, what is being played by Prime Minister Fico and some of the representatives of his government is that perhaps Russia would offer the customers better prices than the other suppliers, and also Slovakia has profited very much, especially prior to the escalation of Russian aggression against Ukraine in February 22, from the transit fees of both gas and oil. So it is in the interest of the government to maintain actually these incomes. But on the other hand, it's not about the energy security of Slovakia, because the country has managed to diversify. It's not only the suppliers, but also the transit roads. I would say the gas can also come from the west through the territory of the Czech Republic. There are also other possibilities and other suppliers, so it won't hit Slovakia particularly as much, such a decision. As I said, the companies are getting ready for this situation, but still the government of Prime Minister Fico and the Prime Minister himself try to, fight for the best interest of the countries, as they say, though these actually are undermined by the opposition and by some important energy analysts, because it's quite clear that to maintain the situation like it is not actually possible for a longer time.
So let me ask you this. Given Slovakia's support for Ukraine's EU accession now, how might energy cooperation between Ukraine and Slovakia impact their broader economic and political relationship?
Well, I would say that energy has played an important role in bilateral relations because Slovakia is not only an importer of Russian gas and oil that comes through Ukraine, but also the gas can go the other direction, which means from the west to Ukraine, and it might be of particular interest of Ukraine if the conditions are getting harder during the winter time. So Slovakia has invested quite a lot in order to make this reverse flow possible. Also, Slovakia and Ukraine are getting more and more connected when it comes to the electricity grid, which would also enable and has already enabled Ukraine to import significant amounts of electric energy to Ukraine in these difficult times. So I would say that for both countries, cooperation in the energy sector is of particular importance, but the views on how to actually deal with the imports of Russian gas and oil are to quite a big extent different in Kyiv and in Bratislava.
Now let's shift a little bit to what Fico said about Ukraine joining NATO. I mean, that caused quite a spur publicly over social media as well. Now, according to Fico, so he believes that that Ukraine's NATO membership could possibly cause a third world war because of NATO's mutual defense obligations. What can you tell us about his specific comments and about this whole situation in general, his stance on this? Why is he so blatant about this?
Well, I would say that the Prime Minister has become famous for using, so to say, different language when he communicates with partners abroad and when compared to the language that he uses at home. And this message particularly goes to the voters of his own political party and of course the nationalist populist style of policy making and addressing the voters has become quite profitable for him and for his actually colleagues from the governing political parties. So those messages are directed to domestic voters as well. But of course, Fico has already made clear that he is open to the communication with Russia, that he also considers the interests of Russia when it comes to the future post-war security architecture in Europe. So the membership of Ukraine in the EU is pragmatically seen as, the benefit for Slovakia, but in order to maintain the ties with Russian Federation and to possibly, even enhance it after the end of the conflict, he is against the NATO membership of Ukraine, which clearly does not go along with the position of important EU and NATO, particularly NATO member states, including Poland and the only country that shares maybe the similar position is Hungary, the southern neighbor of Slovakia. So it's a mixture of, populist foreign policy where the interests of the voters are taken into consideration with the so-called, defense of national interest, which are actually backed by the opening of foreign policy to all possible partners, including China, including Russia, and this makes actually the government's position different from its neighbors, but also from other and the majority of EU and NATO member states.
I just want to get a little bit more into what you're saying about his relationship with Russia here. Now, Fico has plans to visit Moscow relatively soon. How do you think that that's going to reflect Slovakia's evolving foreign policy towards Russia and towards Ukraine if he does really make this trip? He has said before that he doesn't see also any military solution, right? A military negotiation to the conflict in Ukraine.
Right. The aim to achieve peace by all means, this is one of the favorite slogans he has been using, but not only him, the other members of his political party and also other parties that are now in the government. So in order to achieve peace, according to him, negotiations are needed, and the ultimate goal should be to stop the military operation as soon as possible. And of course, it's not perceived realistically by the majority of Slovakia's allies, both in the EU and in NATO and in Ukraine itself. But I would say that this is only one part of the story. The second part is that despite the fact that Fico and the other representatives of the current government used widely peace and the slogan "No bullet to Ukraine," Slovakia's defense industry has been actually working very intensively, and Ukraine is actually the target or the importer of the ammunition that is being produced in Slovakia, and the amounts of the ammunition and other types of equipments that are being exported to Ukraine from Slovakia have an increasing tendency. So the exports are rising, and this is not said publicly in Slovakia. And if so, if some journalists discover that yes, a new factory has been now open in eastern Slovakia that would actually provide another types of military equipment to Ukraine, the response is that this is just good for our exports, but no one in the government mentions that these exports are going to Ukraine and are going to be used by Ukrainian troops. So this is a hidden part of the policy of Prime Minister Fico. He's not so much a peacemaker as he might look at the first glance, because, as I said, the facts say that Slovakia has been actually supporting Ukraine by different kinds of military equipment on commercial basis. The truth is that Slovakia stopped providing military assistance and equipment from the state stocks, but when it comes to commercial companies, the production has been constantly increasing.
Thank you so much, Sir Tomáš Strážay, analyst, Slovak Foreign Policy Association, for having spoken to us here on World Talks on TVP World about the meeting between Fico and Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal. Thank you so much for being with us here this evening.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Good night. And that's all for this edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. Stay tuned for more.